Chapter 5, The Question of God. The unknown mystery of God. From birth, all that is a mystery, and we, piece by piece, resolve the unknown. Ever clearer is our puzzle's picture. Its image, chopped and scattered, revealing only enough to show it is limitless, dumbfounding us, still with awe. Man pushes toward answer. His efforts, genuine, and gaining understanding advances. The universe courts his attention. Their relationship grows, and they become more and more familiar with each other. Life, where we stop, the verse around us continues. That verse is a mix of parts living and parts non-living. And the presence of cells allow us the opportunity to reverse construct our understanding of all things living, giving us a more clear picture of the way life is established, and the relationship of life to reality. Cells are microscopic organisms, currently the smallest known unity of life, and the building material of all other life on Earth. Every part of any plant or terrestrial being on Earth is physically constructed by cells. They are the engineers of life on this planet. The origin of information, reality, considered apart from biology, contains no instruction or information. Yet, cells do. And they generate the whole of biological existence, least to greatest, with every property inscribed into the mysterious function of cells. Biological existence conforms to factual provable instructions inscribed within the reality of cells. And cells are the delivery system of that information. Stirring the madness within to question, where did this information come from? The information in cells is like an archive of books, written with a beginning, an end, and a lofty story in the middle. How, though, does this intuitive machine exist in the reality and the universe that is seemingly outside the known mystery of biology? We cannot see where this instruction is sent from, or what is writing it. But it is written on the cell, in whatever computing dimension of reality. And like passengers on a train, these instructions exit at their stop, and all go their separate ways, to do whatever job it is they have, and go wherever it is that they were intended to go, as instructed them, before they got on the train. Cells operate with baffling alertness to the laws of reality, biological limitations, conformity, and preparedness for possibilities. Yet, a man on the edge of a cliff does not spawn wings, nor does 1,000 years' worth of men on the cliff's edge produce the faintest sign of wings sprouting. Not one new bone, not one alternative cell, with alternative instructions, for genetically creating wings. Not one feathered or bat-like appendage. The breakdown of cellular creation, an examination of biological realization, using the human body as a model. Not a step-by-step process, but an observation of practical stages. In general, the event of formation is divided into 4 stages: cell unit, cell community, cell network, and final product. An outline of these stages: individual cells become a community of cells, then a network of communities, and finally, take the form we are most familiar with, a completed terrestrial body. Cell unit, an individual, free-living, microscopic organism. Cell community, a community of cells form in which cell units cease to function as their own and take on existence as a collective unity. A concentrated formation such as skin tissue or an organ would be an example of a cell community. Cell network, communication that takes place between 2 or more separate cells, or 2 or more interfaced communities, both in the form of pre-creation of a community, and post-formation, when communities maintain an active connection. Final product, while it's easiest to think of an actual terrestrial being, that being itself is a separate form, for which the final product is host to. The final product is the finished endeavor of all those cells' efforts. It is the combined interface of all the cells' communities as a working living whole. Terrestrial wake. After the final product is complete, the mystery of terrestrial awareness takes place. That awareness is not microscopic in its nature or interaction, and it does not communicate with the parts that built and maintain its fleshly vessel. Yet both are living, and both have consciousness. They appear to coexist, but are not one in will, purpose, or thought, to which I suggest they are 2 beings, dependent on each other for survival. The will and an intentional host. Our bodies are designed, engineered, without our conscious input, and done so by intention. with overwhelming evidence. The many systems necessary to give rise to conscious being, at the level of terrestrial being, exists specifically for that purpose, to give rise to conscious being, and to play host to that being. Purpose is a formula, and apparent motive, in the construction of our bodies, as they are designed with the intention to be host to consciousness on our scale of awareness, not microscopic. Without our conscious being, these bodies we reside in, have no practical point or purpose to exist. They would sit there, with legs and arms and ears and eyes, a nose, a mouth, and no way to feed themselves, making the purpose to be a host, determined prior to the formation of our bodies. Knowledge beyond the cell, unless microscopic cells are somehow universally intelligent, knowledge outside the limits of that held by cells themselves, or even able to be learned through cell-to-cell communication, had to have been present and active in the design of terrestrial reality. All the many specialized purposes to which each terrestrial being's physical counterparts were crafted, could not have been the work of anything less than a globally conscious mind. The reason, DSIGN of terrestrial hosts, requires advanced awareness, limbs, understanding of the ways in which physics work. Oxygen-breathing lungs, knowledge of the chemical makeup of the atmosphere, digestive system, as the body consumes, breaks down, stores and excretes materials, an exterior knowledge of the molecular and chemical composition of items meant to be processed into an energy source, was also needed. These are all things beyond the scope of the atomic, molecular, and cellular existence, but include the deep mechanical knowledge of them all, which suggests there is an advanced intelligence, greater than man's, who possesses a universal awareness, with power that is radiating across all reality. As this intelligence is able to control and direct the microscopic realm of the atomic, molecular, and cellular levels, and doing so, that power has established the life forms on this earth. Evolution and adaptation, the limited pliability of the theory in general, is as follows. Different things close in on a being, threatening its existence, causing the onset of competition, environmental changes, and the serious need to survive. Its life and death hang on the balance of adaptability. It changes or it dies. The theories fit well within the borders of cell communities and networks. It's definitely plausible, and worth attention. But, both take stage after a life form has entered reality, and not before. For evolution and adaptation to work, requires the initial host to be already formed, with aspects of that form modified for advantage and survival. Experience and interaction would over time lead to adaptive functionality. But, to go from single cell, to cell community, to cell network, and finally to terrestrial being, it must be realized that all functionality and purpose for which those forms were brought into existence have no bearing on a host that is not conscious. Evolution cannot exist, not as something controlled by the host, and would require the same living network that created original creation, to make such changes happen, implying that any such real changes were not the ambition of the being, but the application of the Creator. The reason, sealed in our cells, are genetic instructions, which carry all the possibilities our physical hosts have. Instructions that take a single microscopic cell, and create a specific host. A host, built upon those instructions. Every cell in the host, functions within a predetermined parameter, as granted by the instructions inscribed in the original sex cell. If it's not in the instructions, then the cells cannot do it. You have to rewrite their individual function. To imply that evolution is responsible for the life on Earth is ridiculous. Life is uniform, species after species, traits and attributes that are specific, species-wide, with limited adaptation that is not outside the design of the creature. The frog does not become a frog because it thought long and hard on it. The human doesn't grow wings for all their centuries of wanting to fly. And fish with lungs, and bipedal-like fins, obviously meant to be fish who can waddle to another water source. Adaptation, as a part of psychology, is a modifier that we use to apply and calculate our success and failures. But within the world of our mind it has no physical power. Only adjust our physical approach to a problem. Adaptation, in the body, is not something that the consciousness we have is able to control. It occurs as a physically optional reaction. The reaction, already considered in the design of the species, that allow that particular creature to adapt, as intended, when the appropriate scenario is met. The testimony of reproduction, in humans, requires two. The male, a female, and cannot happen, as a result of personal evolution. Because, each parent is a contributor of exact building materials. 26 chromosomes, from each, not from one. That in itself, tells us that no single cell, could reasonably know that when it was creating the first human, that human would require an entirely separate human to continue its race. Alone, that's an astonishing happening. But not simply another, and chance human. The human, of the opposite sex, as required, by our bodies, with their counterparts, already physically compatible for the task. Something that no amount of human ingenuity, could have solved on its own. Something, planned out, and accounted for before there was a human consciousness. As no one human, being the first, could evolve itself into separate humans. Once more, cells show us that these hosts, are predetermined, made, by intention, and demonstrating considerable consideration, by something not human, and something not limited to a single body's knowledge. Original creation is deliberate, testified to by that creation. The purpose of that creation, however, is not clear, as our Creator is a mystery, who seems to be silent, visible only in the structures and working of reality. The intelligence behind creation, all that is a factor that belongs to a single fact. That fact, created and owns all other fact, and is some kind of super-intelligence. The living knowledge, etched across time and creation, intermingled throughout everything molecule and cell and atom, and through them, that intelligence speak to us, declaring the truth, that our Creator exists in them all, universally aware, the most unique, the most powerful, with knowledge of every integer of reality, and silent, with appall and laughter at our superior intellects and godlike self-impressions. The only God is not the sudden accidental formation of intelligence. He is literally, forever, and the universe, is merely an expression of his never-ending, infinite power. Before there was anything, he was God. Not the God of fable and fantastic epiphany. The God, who is ever, the only one, the island, who is, before there was any form or shape. He is the only, as with anything that is the only one, he stands apart from all else, singled out, with no confusion, competition, or contrast over his status. The only one, even after he made the ever, Christ, he was still the only one, separate, and separated from all else. The unsearchable majesty, the mind's feeble construction of God, is a religious counterfeit, which cannot infer upon man, the living spirit of God's will and fellowship. God, is alive, living, unrepresentable by human conjecture, beyond all reach of the imagination. And the error of man, is to think we can substitute the grand, unsearchable depths of God's living verse, for a self-contained mental abstract. God, does not inhabit the fabled body of man's conscious ideas. God is ever, never-ending, never contained, and unfathomable. We have glimpses of his personality, mere sparkles of his actual character. But we cannot create a defined structure for God to live in. He dwells in all place, all time, all space. Beautiful God, the person of God, is so superbly grand, that no one can know his mind. The living power, that secretly permeates every cell, atom and molecule in existence, whose very existence is scoffed at, by the wisest of men. At the best of man's efforts, an idea of his living person, cannot come close. The actual, evades them. Consciousness, at the level on which God exists, could never be fathomed. The Lord of reality, is the greatest unknown, never to be known by man. Every ounce of existence plays host to his mind, his sight, and his mystery. A fact, that is both true, and incomplete. Barely considerable, as existence, is a mere word spoken. The grain of sand, in the limitless power of God. A smile, that is at once, both action and history.